locked down. They can't get out of the body. They can't get out. They don't have the vocabulary to free themselves.
So as a people, as a race, black people as a race, under these conditions, what do you see as like the long-term effects, and do you see that how is it that we can break from this cycle?
Well, you need to put E in front of that word race. If you're talking about black people, just put erase.
Erase.
Yeah, that would be a better way of saying it. Now, the thing is that if the black people would return to the herbs and the natural foods, they would be all right. They would be all right.
Herbs and natural foods alone. That'll change the way they think as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, but see, in order to approach food, you have to be spiritual. In order to be spiritual, you have to have a relationship with God. And God gives you power, military power. Because there's never been a church in Africa that didn't have a military. Okay. You got to protect whatever it is. You put bumpers on a car. If you run in a church, you got to have an army. Walmart has an army. They call it private detectives. You got to have an army if you're in this game here. So the connection to the food will start with a connection to that force inside of them that's greater than their brain, greater than their emotions. You can't connect it. That's why we always say a prayer before we eat, in honor of the God in the food and the God in myself. And this unity of the gods causes me to elevate myself. And I'm saying the culture defines the food, the culture defines the diet. So I'm engaged in the culture. The food is the delivery system to make me more culture.
Okay. Yeah. So what do you say to the person who says that they love God, or they believe that they love God or whatever, and they're not healthy, and you know what I mean?
That's impossibility. That's impossible. All these prophets ate organic food, whole food. You can go to Jesus, Muhammad, all of them, Moses, all of them ate, all of them ate natural food, and I can prove that. Right. So no. They love the God that's defined to them by their oppressor.
All right, let's get into that.
Yeah, they're still attached to the slavery syndrome. They are addicted to white people in some form or another. They can't get rid of that addiction. They are absolutely addicted to white people. They're going to say, if I want to be something, I had to get the white man's Grammy, the white man's Oscar, the white man. They're addicted. And I treat them as addicted. And that's a mental illness. They are absolutely mentally ill. Right. We don't like to admit that in the black community. But we have the highest mental illness rate of any race in America. We are mentally ill. Anytime you calling your sister a bitch and a hoe, you are sick. That's not a thing to be saying, oh, it's just a word. No, it's a form of mental illness. That's what it is. And we got to look at it that way. And at a certain point, we don't have enough juice to heal all these people.
Okay. So now, as it relates to the mental illness, wouldn't you think that the mental illness is just us emulating our oppressor to some degree?
That's all we know. If you try to arouse a dog to sleep, and it may bite you. So you got to be careful when you're waking up black folks. You got to have skills to deal with the mentally ill, and we don't have the skills. We don't have the practitioners, because we're using the European model of the mind in the first place. The mind is not structured like a fairy tale, a Greek fairy tale called Oedipus. Your mind is not structured like a fairy tale.
Yeah.
So we're using the
I
fairy
believe Freud
tale.
came up with that. Like
Oedipus and all that.
And all of that stuff.
The id, super ego, all of these are gods and goddesses in Greek and Roman culture. We're actually going into a system of worshiping now.
Right.
That's clear. But he came up with this thing, in order to figure out your mind, you got to read Hansel and Gretel or Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's absurd. We essentially have an animal brain, and we have to understand that for what it is.
Animal brain.
Yes, animal brains are what they are. If you run up on a deer, it's either going to run away from you, run at you, or freeze.
Okay.
And that's what our brains do. It either attacks the problem, withdraw from the problem, or gets locked in the problem. Like a person just keeps reliving the same anger over and over. It won't speak to you. Something happened 10 years ago.
Right.
They're frozen in it, and that's a mental illness. Okay. But if they freely can swing in and out, have that flexibility, that emotional vocabulary, they could do it. But other than that, they're mentally ill.
Yeah, I see a mass mental illness on our people. Mass mental illness.
It take about 1,000 years for a people to move. in recorded history, and that's a short time.
1,000 years.
It takes at least, we haven't been out of this slavery thing in maybe 150 years, 200 years, a short time. We have made a tremendous amount of progress in a short period of time.
Okay.
And we still are not aware that whenever we get hurt, it's because of our own people, from Marcus Garvey to Denmark VZ. You understand? It's been our own, Malcolm X, you understand?
Right.
It's always been our own people, because our own people are still addicted to their oppressor. It's an addiction, and we don't see it as such.
Right.
And addictions are never treated with logic.
So how do you go about treating addiction?
You don't treat it with logic.
You don't treat it with
It's
logic.
an emotional problem. It's not an intellectual problem. You can tell a person, look, you're putting that needle in your arm, shooting the cocaine, whatever, that's bad for you. You can logically explain it to them, and they'll still do it.
Yeah.
Because the emotions will override intelligence. Emotions will override intelligence any day of the week. Our problems are emotional. We got into this problem emotionally. We're emotionally disconnected from ourselves, our food, our heritage, our culture. That's why I mentioned we're emotionally castrated from that whole catechism thing where we just practice this short emotional range. So we don't have the program to access black intelligence. It's going to take a house cleaning.
Yeah.
I worked in the prison, and whenever there was a riot, they always kill the snitches first. I only know what I know. That's the first thing you do.
Hit the snitches, huh?
Colin Bowers, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
But we need that kind of intelligence that he has. We need military intelligence, and most of us lack a military understanding. We think military has something to do with guns. Military is the ability to use misdirection and deception.
Yeah.
Misdirection and deception has nothing to do with guns whatsoever.
Yeah, because you could, we talk about a tank. If the tank doesn't have any gas, the tank can't move.
That's right.
No matter how much bombs it has, if it doesn't have any gas,
And
tank can't move.
sand will stop any machine.
all right.
Just a little bit sand.
Yeah,
Just
it's
throw it
military strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you recommend as some good whole, type of foods that we should like move toward? Because there's a lot of food out there, but it's all type of things going on with this food stuff.
Well, it's the disappearance of food, actually.
Yeah,
It's the disappearance of food.
the people buying the seeds and copyrighting the seeds,
Yes.
and producing all this hybrid stuff.
It's the disappearance of food as we know it. That's what's going on. Let's be clear. These people eating synthetic things that look like food, spliced with moths, rats, bacteria. These are synthetic foods, essentially. And what is going on is...
So wouldn't the synthetic food have an impact on your, just the same way like sugar and all those other things?
That is correct.
Isn't
Now, we're talking about sex addiction, which is caused by the sex hormones put in the burgers, the fish, and the dairy, and the cheese. Steroids, the sex hormones, makes a person naturally crave sex. They become addicted to sex in music videos, thongs, anything relates to sex they want because they have a sex addiction. So I would treat the addiction first. First and foremost, I would probably use a herb like chickweed, amino acid like glutamine to help curb the addiction. And then get the person gradually away from the junk food because they don't have a taste bud for natural food. They eat and say, that don't taste right.
They don't like nothing.
So I
don't even want to drink water.
No, water don't taste right. No. They want to drink this Kool-Aid with sugar in it.